Hey guys, welcome back to the Franchise Tagged Podcast, Season 2, Episode 12. Kicking things off with a shout out to our Spotify. As always, go check that out. Go check us out on there. And also a heads up that next week, podcast will be releasing on Wednesday, not Thursday, because we do have some earlier Thursday games. So we want to get those pick'ems and the podcast in general out before any of those games start. So instead of 4 p.m. Thursday like we normally do, it will be probably 4 p.m. on Wednesday. And we won't have an individual segment video releasing, but that is just for next week for Thanksgiving. And with that, I think we can enter our little game-by-game recap that we got going on.
Yep, for sure. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, Commanders-Eagles. I don't think it lived up to what we really wanted to see from the Commanders at all. They kind of sputtered and needed to... they were basically in like the, okay, we have to score and kick an onside mindset very early into that fourth quarter. But I mean, it was really like the tale of two halves for Saquon Barkley and his production on the night. They showed it on the broadcast. They were talking about how if he runs inside the tackles, here are his stats. And it was like negative yardage. And then, if he runs outside the tackles, here's his stats. And then, he goes into halftime. He had 15 attempts, 56 yards. And he went ahead and he erupted for just two long touchdown runs late in the game to kind of ice it for the Eagles to take that one, going 11 for 90 on the rest of the game. So big game for Saquon. And that kind of brings me a little sneak preview into the PickEms recap. Is I picked the Commanders, and I thought about it more and more as like the week went on. And I was like, man, I really forgot that the Eagles have Saquon, huh? And then the game was played, and I was like, yeah, that's my bad.
Yeah, that game, going into it, I was flip-flopping the other. I was like, man, the Commanders are good. They got Terry, they got Jaden Daniels, they got Brian Robinson, they got Austin Eckler, they got a strong offense, and their defense is kind of starting to be a little bit better. Mike Sainer still had a couple really nice plays, if I remember correctly, and
Yep.
I was hoping that Marshawn Lattimore would play, and I was hoping that they would make it a really close game. And it kind of was until Saquon was just like, okay, my game. And he just turned the hopes off for the Commanders. But yeah, very disappointing for what we had hoped for it. And I don't feel as confidently in the Commanders as I did a little earlier in the season. I think the Cliff Kingsbury effect is real, where he starts off the season's real strong and then falls off a little bit. And I think Kyler got a lot of hate for that on the Cardinals because COD would come out around halfway through the season and Kyler would start to dip in production, and it's not his fault. It's Cliff Kingsbury's fault. And Kyler just went off this past weekend as well, I believe, right? Or no, last weekend, he went off and kind of not eliminated that talk, but like muted that talk a little bit on him underperforming with Call of Duty out. And I
Now,
think
I'll counter that by saying Jaden Daniels is young, and he probably likes COD too. So it's
young,
probably a mixture of that.
Sure. Young for a rookie, no. But anywho, we can move on to, I think the next thing we up is the Ravens game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough watch as somebody who was really believing in the Ravens. I partially convinced you to switch your pick from the Steelers to the Ravens because you had it on the Steelers, and I was like, that's stupid. You're stupid. How could you do that?
And I said, I am stupid. I should feel bad. You're right. Let me pick the Ravens and take this L on Pick'ems.
Yeah. And then Father Time is really catching up to Justin Tucker. It's really tough to see the most accurate kicker that I've ever watched, the guy that's just, he has been perfect for my entire life. Like my entire life of watching football has been, wow, Justin Tucker's a really damn good kicker. He can't miss a kick. Every kick is straight down the middle. They've always been beautiful to watch, and he's just not hitting them anymore. And it's really tough to see. And that's part of the reason they lost, is they lost by 2. He missed 2 field goals.
Yeah. And on the flip side of the game, the Steelers, who had 6 for 6 field goal from their kicker.
Yeah.
And no touchdowns. Yep, it was 18 points all from the leg of Chris Boswell. And Boswell's been kicking real good all year, and it's no real surprise that he's like just a guy to rely on for that team, especially when they're not at all getting in like scoring, like, the easy, oh, we'll actually go for this on fourth down or anything like that. Like the Steelers are just taking their points. And yeah, it's a shame that it was really exacerbated by the points they lost by, like how Justin Tucker missed. He
Yeah.
can miss them from 50 plus, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's getting older, but then they would eventually win the game. But it's really like the reason they lost is because they got in scoring range twice, and Justin Tucker couldn't get the kicks in. So
Yeah.
it's a tough look there.
Yeah, and he'll never get cut. He won't. They wouldn't do that to him. I think Jake Elliott might, the Eagles kicker who missed all those field goals on Thursday night. I think he's got a good chance of getting cut. I don't think Evan McPherson will because he signed a contract. This has just been a week of rough performances from kickers, really.
Kickers, yeah.
Except Boz. Anywho, after all that, onto the Broncos game. I hate to say it, and it's hard for me as a classic Broncos hater. I hate her. I just don't like them that much. It's tough for me to say it. I think it's time we start taking them seriously. They look good. Bo Nix is possibly the Rookie of the Year front runner. Like this is a team that can win games. The defense is good. Bo Nix is playing very well. There's just a bad personality at coach, in my opinion. But I mean, they can win games. They can pick them up. They almost beat the Chiefs, and it was a lucky blocked field goal, kind of like the one in the Packers-Bears game. That meant they didn't win, and now they're winning, and they're looking good. And it's, yeah, I don't shout out Matt, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that opposite trajectory of what Jaden Daniels started. Like he started hot, past for like 4 or 5 games. Jaden Daniels has kind of come down to earth for at least like the rookie expectations, and then you got Bo Nix, who started off a little fluky. Like he showed some good things. He also showed some bad things. And then their offense, of course, is just the Sean Payne offense. So I'd argue it's less fun than the Chiefs to watch. But it really showed up this past week against the Falcons, and yeah, I had kind of felt that the Falcons were maybe going to be reeling a little bit after the loss, but not that badly. That was an ugly loss for the Falcons on their side of it, but
Penix got snaps.
yeah. I mean, not many, but he did.
He threw 4 passes.
There's just like the Broncos. They never felt like a team that has like that much talent. Like Cortland Sutton was like it's the offensive staple of them. Then Lil Jordan Humphrey has kind of just like started to become a name I'm hearing every week, and I'm like, why am I hearing Lil Jordan Humphrey's name every week? But I think that the defense has always been the bright spot, and to see their offense now generating like 300 plus passing yards and 4 touchdowns through the air, like they're certainly getting back to that early 2010 era of like actually being good. So
Yeah.
we'll see where that kind of takes them for the rest of the year. But I think they're definitely contenders, moving up into that like the playoff caliber team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they acted like this offseason they acted like sellers. Like they got rid of Judy, and I think they got rid of a defensive piece as well. Justin Simmons. They didn't re-sign Justin Simmons or anything. So it's
Yeah.
like some of these big pieces they were just like, we're in rebuild mode. We just got a rookie quarterback, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter. They've got everything they need, it seems, to be winning games. But we can move
We have
into
certain players' giant cap hit. Yeah, they had to get rid of some pieces to deal with some money stuff, for sure.
Yeah. We can get into the division rival of the Broncos, the Chiefs, who dropped the game to the Bills. And our timing on making that Chiefs video calling their season an enigma could not have been better. I said it to you during the game. I was like, if they win this game, I'm going to be pissed at us pissed at myself that I pushed for us to make that Chiefs segment, Chiefs video before this game. But if they lose it, I'm going to be so glad we did it, because we wouldn't have been able to make that same video after a loss.
Yeah.
I want to get your
onto the
thoughts
game
on the
itself.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, onto the game itself. Like it was a slow, rough, methodical game for kind of both quarterbacks in that first half, or first quarter morely, and then the second quarter, I felt like things picked up, and it was like, okay, we're seeing more things. But I think like the biggest part of the loss for the Chiefs is the complete like absentness of Travis Kelsey. There was he was seeing like career highs in targets, receptions a couple weeks ago, and then now we're coming into this week, and I'm thinking to myself like, okay, so the Bills they kind of the in the offseason let a lot of those like linebackers of theirs go elsewhere, and so I'm thinking, okay, so he should be able to produce a little bit against linebackers, against some safeties coming down. The Bills basically fire sold their whole defense. Everyone was gone in the offseason. So I don't know their new defensive players all that well for to know like who's going to be covering whom, who's going to be making sure all these things. But Travis Kelsey went 2 for 8 on the day after 4 targets. And that's definitely like the X factor that usually shows up in these big time games for Mahomes to target and get these easy completions that end up gaining an extra like 15 after the catch. That wasn't there, and so like it was a rough go. And Mahomes coming out the gates immediately, throwing the pick he did, didn't help the team early on, but the defense rallied. The defense just couldn't keep that pace up with the offense kind of how they have all year, where it's like, oh, the defense gives the offense a chance to do anything throughout the season. It felt like the defense definitely got worn down because it's the Bills, because it's Josh Allen, and Josh Allen was able to just power through everybody at the end there to kind of seal the game.
Yeah, I want to know because I wasn't like specifically watching for Travis Kelsey. I know you wanted him to get that touchdown, but were you watching what the Bills were doing in coverage against him, or like if they were doubling him, if they were having basically a QB spy, but for Travis Kelsey because of how he runs routes? Like, was that something they were doing, or was he just not running those find the weak spot routes that he normally does?
It was kind of a combination of the two things, I feel, because it felt like he wasn't often in the right spot he should have been. Like it felt like almost he's getting chipped by the ends, like the edges, like whereas usually it's the tight end's job to chip an edge to give
Yeah.
the pass pro a little bit of hope. But it's like it kind of felt like the opposite. Like he's getting hit off the line, so he's a little bit off, and then there's also like a safety who's definitely playing the Kelsey, like I got to block the Kelsey role. And that showed up with that pick towards the end of the game too, when he targets Kelsey. He targets a little low, and Kelsey has to kind of stop there, but that safety just flies in. I think it was a safety at least, but he flies in and he makes that interception to seal the game as a loss for them. But that was another case of like Mahomes is looking for his guy in these moments, and he does not show up. Yeah, the pick happens there.
Yeah. My last question for you, because we did go over it a little bit last week. Does the outcome of this game and the absence of Travis Kelsey as an impact, does it worry you at all for the offseason or for the postseason, or are you more hoping that the return of Rashi Rice or no Hollywood Brown
Yeah.
and Pacheco, if that will offset the possible lack of Travis Kelsey utilization?
It's possible it will, because I mean you're going to have Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hollywood Brown.
Yeah,
If Hollywood
absolutely.
Brown comes back quite healthy, like if he's not coming back and it's like okay snap count anything like that, if he comes back as healthy as we would hope for him to be, I definitely could see there's too many names to defend in the passing game at that point. But it worries me not so much for like how the team's going to perform in the postseason, performing when the Chiefs eventually play the Bills and the Bills have the home team advantage in the playoffs, because the Chiefs definitely have a very strong. You play the Chiefs at home and you're going to struggle because the Chiefs have that stadium that just rocks. And I think you go to the Bills and it's going to be just such a hostile environment that, especially with any weather circumstances that could come up, yep, Chiefs, they get theirs as well. They don't have to delay games because people are shoveling snow currently at the time the game's supposed to start. So it's a kind of different ball game with how Buffalo handles weather. But it worries me specifically for seeing this matchup again in the playoffs. Not so much for like if they're going to be able to put it together because they do have those pieces coming back healthy.
Okay. Yeah, the Chiefs definitely still a strong team. I think that their ability to score and look good against the Bills kind of stills my concerns of them being completely fraudulent. I kind of knew that they were still a good team. They've beaten good teams, but the injuries piling up and them still being able to be within reach towards the end of the game. Obviously, the last interception kind of sealed it as over. Even if was it Chris Collinsworth was like, I don't know. There's still 30 seconds left. They're kneeling it, but there's still a chance. That man's still standing.
I think it was Romo.
Okay. It was one of the two. And it gets to a point, man, where you got to see why I hate watching them and why I fucking hate everything about like the announcers talking about them, and they're just treating him like he's some deity that can never lose a game. Like, even if there's a second left, he's down 20, he's still got a chance.
There's definitely like I even watched a video about it earlier this year, but there's definitely a thing going on with commentators being overly positive, kind of, as you kind of said, deifying. Like, they're making the players to be gods, basically.
Yeah.
And, I'd say they definitely do the same for Josh Allen. If Josh Allen's down late in a game, it's the same thing. But, they overdo it for most players who have any part of that aura. Like, Lamar, if Lamar does a scramble, it's like, oh, my God. And it's like, we've seen Lamar do that countless times.
I just feel like
specifically for that game, I get the vibe.
I feel like it's a bit of an extreme with Mahomes, and I guess specifically in that game where it's like, no, they're literally kneeling the ball and the Chiefs don't have the timeouts to stop them. Don't say that he has a chance. That's just going to make you sound stupid. Like, I understand, like, yes, it is kind of annoying to hear them, like you said, deifying these players and being like, oh, classic Josh Allen move when he breaks a tackle and finds his man downfield. Oh, my God. Or Lamar makes a scramble and they're like, whoa, we've never seen a guy do that before.
Oh, here's a guy.
Now here's a guy who's going to make a play even when everything seems covered and there's no chance for anything to happen. He's still going to find a way. I don't know. Looked a little Mahomey to me. Anytime there's a slightly off-platform throw. I don't know where the hell I'm ending that last clip, so we're going to transition into the Bengals and Chargers. I have no better way of doing this, and I apologize. This game, Sunday Night Football, an absolute thriller. Also, Elijah has a baby now. That's new since the last clip. But yeah, this Sunday Night Football game, absolute thriller. I saw somebody describe it as the Chiefs-Bills 13-second game, but if neither team scored. And I thought that was just hilarious. Like, there is no real better way to describe it. You got a better way, Amelia?
Honestly, that game was very, very entertaining throughout because it was just, I mean, there was a resurgence, there was a huge comeback, and it looked a little Mahomey to me, Joe Burrow making those passes, but man, it just kind of falls short in the end there for him. And what was kind of because I went into the PickEms for this game thinking like, okay, Chargers are going to win. I don't think it's going to be a big day for the Bengals passing offense, but it really was. Like, they definitely broke the mold of what the Chargers defense has been doing to, opposing passers. And T. Higgins, man, like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, like, they are true weapons. I know you have a little thing on T. Higgins that you are itching for.
Yeah, so a couple things about this game, a couple more things I got. So I mean, for the first half, you nailed your prediction. I was thinking back to it as I was watching, and I was like, he specifically said the Bengals defense won't be able to keep up, and the Chargers defense will be shutting down the Bengals. And that's essentially what happened for the entire first half. and there was no real spark in the pass game. There were a couple good plays, but generally the pass game was getting shut down. Burrow wasn't having the time he needed, and then the Chargers offense was just fine because the Bengals defense sucks so much. And yeah, I think towards the end of the game it got to be more of like Joe Burrow and the receivers just being like, all right, we're better than any DB, so just get to the ball. And then eventually there were a couple mistakes and a couple missed throws, but yeah, I don't think the Bengals can afford to pay both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, especially with the contract they handed Burrow and the fact that their defense isn't good, so they're going to need to overspend on that. And I would love nothing more than to see T. Higgins wear a Patriots jersey. Now, off of Sunday Night Football, that insane matchup, into the Monday night game, much less exciting, Houston and Dallas. Cowboys, not good football team. I would very much like to see Trey Lance. You have written down, when can we see Trey Lance? I fully agree. Could not agree more, in fact. Cooper Rush is not entertaining to watch, and Trey Lance is still young. Get him those reps while you can and see what you got in him. You've invested a 4th round pick in him, so it's not like you got him for nothing, like out of free agency or for a 7th. Like, you put some capital into him, throw him out there. You've got the opportunity. Dak's down.
Yeah, I think definitely like this next, they got a little string of in-division games, and it's like, hey, maybe you don't think Trey Lance is the best hope for you to win games, in the division for this little stretch here to try to keep hopes alive. But in my opinion, hopes are dead. They've been dead. I just want to see Trey Lance sooner than later, and against the Commanders, against the Giants on Thanksgiving, like, I don't want to see Cooper Rush for those games.
And with that, I don't think we have much else to say. You want to get into the PickEms and what happened this week with those?
Yep. We definitely did some convincing of each other back and forth, conducive to some of us and not conducive on the other side. But I went 10-4 this week. You went 8-6. My lock was on the Texans in the game we just spoke on. That hit, and yours was on the Dolphins over the Raiders, which of course happened as well. So on the year, I'm sitting at 106-60, 6-5 on my lock record. Once again, I am positive, and I know just next week I'm going to lose it and go back to being even. And you're ever so slightly better than me, still at 108-58 for your year-long record, and then 9-2 on your locks. You certainly know how to pick them. That's for sure.
Absolutely, I do my best.
But
in fact, pick 'em. Whoa. The Lions have had one of the most impressive seasons so far in the NFL this year. But how did we get here from the back in the days of 0-16 and the classic Lions suckage? And how good actually are they? So you have a lot of stats. You are a big Lions fan, and I'm going to be sitting here reacting to those stats and kind of giving my thoughts on the whole situation from the outside looking in, I guess. I root for the Lions by proxy because, you root for the Lions, so I'm always hoping that they win. But yeah, let's dive into some of these stats that you have listed and get to talking about the Lions' super impressive 2024 season.
Yeah, so, to kind of really recap how the team has come to be, we've got just the past 4 seasons really to quickly, I'm going to go over them. So 2021, Dan Campbell is hired as the head coach. Alongside him, he was hired after Sheila Hamp took over as the, real one in charge of the decisions in the building, fired off Matt Patricia, hired in Brad Holmes as a new GM, who has been a just rock star for the team. As with his first draft with the team, he went ahead, he got Amon-Ra, he got Penei Sewell, he got Ali McNeil, and then he made the big trade for Jared Goff in the first place to kind of kickstart the whole rebuild with all the draft picks we acquired and such. So that's a big, spot to be in, having as much capital as you have to start off this new regime. And in that new regime, they started off pretty rough, as they didn't have all their guys in the building. They couldn't organize things to the scheme they wanted, and they were 24th in points per game as an offense. And I do want to note that halfway through the year, Dan Campbell did take over play calling duties, and in the first half of the year, it was a 16.6 point per game And then second half, it was 21.8 points per game for Dan Campbell being the leader of the offense, and definitely kind of kickstarted their offense just a little bit to make it to 24th instead of bottom of the barrel throughout the league. Now, defensively, that was not the case as they were 31st and allowed 27.5 points per game. So, basically losing by a touchdown or more every week wasn't a great ratio to have there. But, you lose all those games that year, and then you go into the next draft and you have the capital to select Aiden Hutchinson. You get Jamison Williams, you get Kirby Joseph, all staple names for the team as of right now. And you also allocate Ben Johnson, the tight ends coach, to being your offensive coordinator. And Ben Johnson has been a huge part of this team and their success because with him in 2022, they were fifth in points per game, making a massive jump up to 26.6 points per game. And then 27th on the defensive side because, you add Hutch, but no real help on the D-line besides Aleem. And then the back end was really just Kirby. Tracy Walker as well, but just kind of a bunch of the old contracts kind of waiting for the checks to clear.
And you were still dealing with Jeff Okudah being there as well, and investing a super high pick in a corner that just didn't pan out. So that didn't help either. Still
having him. And Jeff Okudah played good because he was a man guy, but we put him press a bunch, and eventually he just stopped being good. The first few games of 2022 basically got sidelined and benched. Going into 2023, they kept up that pace with the offense, and they did that by adding Jahmyr Gibbs. They got David Montgomery after letting Jamal Williams leave. They got Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, which was a enigma of a draft class. We kind of did videos and talked about it at the time. And it all panned out. I was really happy when we got Brian Branch in the second round. I was like, okay, I guess all of the other picks make sense if this is how the board has fallen. But yeah, they kept that pace up. They were fifth again, this time with just a slight bump to 27.1 points per game. Defense also slightly got better as you kind of saw some of those older contracts clear and you were able to bring in better players for the money that you were way overspending on before because you were the Detroit Lions. No one wanted to go play there. So then they got that slight bump from about 2 points up to 23.2 defensive points allowed. And then we have this season where it's definitely exploded. The draft was a very draft and offseason, very defensive focused. Went ahead and got Marcus Davenport. Sorry about that. Injury kind of sidelined him. DJ Reader we got. He's actually getting played snaps now after starting off injured. Then we got Carlton Davis. We got Ennis Rakestraw in the draft. Terrion Arnold in the draft. Really built up the defense through this past draft because the offense has been completely formed. Amon Ra, Jamo, Jahmyr, Laporta, all of these names they've added through this regime alone have panned out for them. And right now, the Lions, after that 52-point showing against the Jags, lead the league with 33.6 points per game, barely squeaking past the Ravens in points per game there. But the defense is the real, star of the show because they are fifth in the league after being 31st, 27th, 22nd. Now they're up to fifth, allowing just 17.7 points per game, which is a whole 6-point difference from the year prior. And it's mostly because of the additions of Terrion, Carlton Davis, and just really revamping Amik Robertson as well, another corner we added this past offseason. It's really invigorated the defense into how Aaron Glenn likes to run his scheme, how he likes the game plan. He likes running man. And so you need corners to do that, and he hasn't had corners until this point in time.
I have a couple questions. The jump from 22nd to 5th in points, or defensive points allowed per game. 2023 they allowed 23.2. This year they're allowing 17.7, which is a big jump. Now, is it truly just because they added corners that were good and they hit on those picks and then the additions in the offseason, or is it Aaron Glenn getting better, or is it Brian Branch getting better and Kirby Joseph getting better? Is it the development of players that you've already had, or is it truly the addition of players through free agency in the draft? Because that's something that I'm out of the loop on.
It's definitely a nice combination of both because we got Carlton Davis, who is sorry for the shade that I'm about to slant. Kendall Vildor was one of our starting outside corners last year. Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold playing those roles. right now are just huge improvements there. Ennis Rakestraw, we still have yet to really see him much of him because we have Amik Robertson above him and he kind of gets those rotational snaps on those dime packages. Brian Branch, he started off his year electric, playing that nickel corner as a rookie, and then they moved him back to safety, and I think that's been a great part of his development. I mean, you see the interception numbers just skyrocket for him this year versus last. He's able to read quarterbacks' eyes, and he's got the athleticism where he's able to do something about it on every single play. And then Kirby Joseph, I mean, he was kind of almost a day one starter for us, kind of worked himself into the role gradually to be that safety for us. And last year and even in 2022, he was a great safety for us, but it's definitely the combination of him with Brian Branch, I think. Their chemistry is definitely better than I think Kirby and our other safeties have been. They disguise things really well because of Brian Branch's athleticism. And so Kirby Joseph is able to do less at the safety position and produce more because of it, because more can rely on Brian Branch. I don't think we got like the best man corners, but in the draft, I mean, with Ennis and Terrian, you can check out like the combine, the pre-combine, pre-draft videos I did on those, the scouting reports. But Terrian, I think, is good enough in the run game where it's like, okay, he was a team fit because we prioritize stopping that run, and Terrian Arnold's going to play both sides of the offense, be able to stop both of them. So it's definitely a great development of Brian Branch, of Kirby Joseph. And then you combo that with, okay, we have a lot new names in that we can have do various things and that are flexible, basically.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to say, we've got their upcoming schedule here. I'll probably put it up on the screen above us. But they've won in some of the most convincing fashion that I think anybody has this year. I hate to harken back to the Chiefs because I feel like I dog on them so much for a 9-1 team. But I feel like the Chiefs were sitting at the top of the power rankings in the league as a team that wasn't winning games convincingly at all, and it bothered me. And so now seeing the Lions finally get that recognition of, okay, they are stomping out teams. Like, they are destroying teams. And if they're not destroying you, that's a pretty good sign that you're a good team because you didn't get destroyed. So I don't feel confident in any of the matchups that they have coming up that the other team will be able to put up a good number of points on them and be able to beat them, except maybe the Bills. I think the Bills will be their toughest matchup as they've just beaten the Chiefs, and they are a very impressive team. But even then, I don't think the Lions have a matchup that they can't win for the rest of the year. And I think, for me, they're my NFC Super Bowl favorites just because of how consistent, solid, and like complete of a team they are from top to bottom, not just in players that they have, but their coaching staff is extremely good. Both coordinators are great and might have head coaching jobs next year. Dan Campbell's a great people guy, and he gets the locker room bought in. And then the roster has never looked better. And finally, you're seeing Jamo not be suspended or injured, so you're seeing a full season of him and his utilization in this offense. And you're seeing Sam Laporta take kind of a step back, but it's because they're able to utilize a bunch of different players. And then you're seeing David Montgomery kind of step into a bigger role than he ever had with the Bears. And you're seeing Jahmyr Gibbs pop off and have some really, really good, impressive performances. And it just kind of is better to have 20 mouths on offense that can score a bunch of points. And then if one of them has a slow game or one of them's a little tired, that's fine. We have literally everybody else that can also produce, and their backups that can also produce.
Yeah. Honestly, as we look at this schedule moving forward, it's like, okay, the Colts showed a lot with Anthony Richardson, and the Lions have, because of the man-to-man coverages they run, struggle against those rushing quarterbacks against Lamar, because you kind of lose sight of your man guy that you're assigned to when you see the quarterback break and contain and looking like he's about to run past the line of scrimmage. So there's a little bit of allowance for that against the Colts, but and the Bears are the other primary example of like when that's going to be an issue for them. Looking at the rest of the stretch here, we got 3 primetime games if you count Thanksgiving as a primetime game. 2 Thursday night footballs and 1 Monday night, and the Monday night's against the Niners. So that's going to be a huge game filled with a lot of a feeling of vengeance for the Lions to get back on the 49ers for the last year's NFC Championship. And I think that that's a big motivator for them. Of course, you have all of the division matchups here, and they're always motivated for the division matchups. The Bears, I think, aren't. They looked better this past week, but they still didn't squeak out the win. And the Lions are not a team that you expect to squeak out wins. They are winning convincingly, as you said. So I would have them winning almost all of these down the stretch. I feel like it's inevitable they drop one to a division rival. And I would, honestly, if I'm looking at it, I would hope that would be like the Bears on Thanksgiving, because if it's going to happen anywhere and I want them to gain momentum back from it, it's there. Because I don't want them losing the Packers and then going against the Bills. I don't want them losing the Bears and then going against the Niners. And you don't want them losing to the Vikings. Unless, they have the chance to bench some starters for that game or whatever the situation is there. I honestly do think that they can go undefeated down this stretch, but the Bills are the big bad wolf in that situation. But like you said, this is your pick for the championship, the NFC's appearance in the Super Bowl. This is your team. This was my team start of the year because, a little bit of bias and sprinkled in there with that. But let us know what you think down in the comments, because this is definitely, like, to me, super biased brain. Him, slightly biased brain by osmosis. So let us know if you think that they have the hopes that we both are kind of buying into. And, there's definitely the path that I can see them getting to the Super Bowl, and then Aiden Hutchinson's back from injury and Alex Anzalone's back from injury, and that would be a nice little Cinderella story. All the pieces coming together for the Super Bowl. But let us know what you think, and do you have anything else you got to say?
Yeah, just a little bit of an outro for this. Obviously, this is our segment video. We do one of these every single week, so definitely check out the podcast dropping tomorrow in 24 hours, 4 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. Nope, 5 p.m. Eastern. I always mix those two up, man. 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Check that podcast out and drop some suggestions in the comments for other teams you want us to do a little deep dive like this for. We're going to be going into the Patriots because that's my team. We decided to do Lions first because they just blew out the Jaguars, so it seemed like a pretty good time. And we'll talk about the Patriots and what's going on with them this season. But if there's any teams you want to hear us talk about, dive into, look at some stats for, and the rest of the season outlook for them, or if it's a team like the Patriots where it's not really a rest of the season outlook, it's what are we doing in the off season. We'll do that as well. So just drop some suggestions down in the comments and let us know what you think of this kind of style of I guess recap for certain teams. I'm a big fan of the idea, so let me know if I'm alone in that or if y'all enjoy it as well. And with that, we're going to get back into the standard podcast. Again, full podcast coming out tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central. So just a quick question before we get into stocks, because that is our next segment. Should we be operating under the assumption that Doug Peterson gets fired sometime between now and the video coming out?
No, I feel like it's too late in the week. I feel like firings are Monday, okay. Tuesday thing.
Okay, that's fair. Can't wait to get the notification as we're doing PickEms that he got fired. Anywho, into stocks. And
okay, so I think I kick us off this week, or was it you?
I don't fucking know. You can kick us off.
Right, we'll have you go.
Oh.
Fuck it. We're both two nice guys.
Nice guys. All right. I'll kick us off. I'll do one, and then you'll do two, and then I'll do two, and then you'll do two. So I'll like.
Okay, cool.
I'll start us off, and then we'll go snake draft style. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. As you can see above us, our stocks on the top of the screen. We don't really intro this segment too well to show you what's going on, but basically we've got the middle is the teams and the amounts of stocks that we have, and then the right side for me, so the cost at purchase side, left side for Elijah in the red, and right side for the blue. That's how much we paid at the time that we bought these stocks. Also, fake money. Paid is not real. And then the left side for me, the right side for him is the values. So how much these teams are worth. If it's like the Bucks times 2, that means 800 is what it's worth. Each Buck stock is worth $400. So just a little intro for you in case you're new. First move I'm going to be making today is going to be selling off my 49er stocks. They have a really tough upcoming stretch of games, and I am currently up $100 on them. I should have sold last week, but I thought they had a chance to win, so I didn't. But I will be selling them at $1,000. I paid $500 for one of them and $400 for another one. So I paid $900 total, and now I'm selling them and gaining $1,000 dues.
Yeah, I'm looking ahead at that schedule you mentioned for them. They've got the Bills, they got the Bears, the Rams twice in a 4-week stretch there. So that's a depending on how you feel about them with their divisional games, that's certainly a rough little patch for them.
And Packers this week,
especially
too.
after that loss they just had.
So it's not like they're going into a gimme and I'm selling them before a gimme or anything. But you are in a slightly different predicament.
I think
you have not made money on them yet.
No, I have not made money on them yet, and I also have an ownership of the Packers. So, that'll nicely offset whoever wins that one. But really what I'm looking at right now is the Falcons. I'm kind of losing a little faith in them as they lost some steam. Their value's gone down, but I think I might just take the slight value increase I have on them with that 125 from the cost of purchase to their current value. But on to like the rest of my stocks, like it's a little rough go with where the ceilings are for these teams. The Ravens, of course, I bought in at a little cheap and then a little pricey of numbers there. So I'm going to be holding on to them for the stretch here as I hope to see them pile up some more wins before the end of the year. Although it's definitely a little difficult to envision it with how their defense has been playing. That is one team I definitely want to hold on to, and I might sell it to break even, but I don't think I'll sell any earlier than that. Might just ride out the season and try to see how much they get. But the Bengals I'm down slightly on, and I have hope for them. So right now I'm going to be selling off my Falcon stock. My bank was at 400, so selling off my Falcon stock will put that up to 950. And that 950 in the bank will be nice to have as we kind of get into this last little stretch. I kind of want to pile on to some of these more, the more expensive ones, as I now have 950. The more expensive ones that I don't think are going to be dropping those games late in the year. And that the teams that make that list it's a slim list, but honestly, the Bills, they play a strong rest of the year, but they just beat the top dog. And they beat the top dog in a pretty convincing manner. It felt like the Chiefs were kind of reeling towards the end, actually throughout that game. But I'm going to go pick up one Bills. I'm hoping this doesn't come back to bite me in terms of profit, but I'm picking up my one Bill stock. So that's going to cost me 800 of my 950.
825.
And oh, is it?
Yeah.
I thought I just looked at that. Oh. They're right above all the other ones. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that'll run me the 825 then, and put my bank at 125, which means I effectively cannot do much else with my bank unless I add some other cells to it later today. But with you, how are you feeling?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the stocks that I have right now and the stocks that are up for grabs. Obviously, I mean, all stocks are up for grabs, but I'm looking at them, looking at everything, and I am feeling so unconfident in so many different teams that I can't, like, any of the 2-8 teams right now, they're not good enough for me to buy in. Like, it's Titans, Raiders, Giants, Browns, and then Jags are 2-9. And I am not confident enough in any of them to pick up any of those. But the Bengals, They are on bye this week, and then they play the Steelers next week. But after that Steelers game, they play Cowboys, they play Titans, and they play the Browns at home. Those are three very, very winnable games. I don't think I'm going to pick up any more of them right now, even though they're only 375. I'll think about it again after this week because, again, they're on bye. They can't increase their value. And I'm really looking at that like this could be a kind of last hurrah almost. Like, this is the final move I make to be like, everything else I'm either keeping or selling off. I'm not buying anything else. But the Bengals have such an easy stretch of games towards the end that why wouldn't I invest? And just to see if they lose the game to the Steelers, they drop by $25. If they win it, they go up by 50. Weighing my options. I think I actually am. I'm going to pick up two more Bengals stocks, so I'll be up to three.
I think for me, that's the extent of the moves I'm going to make. The 49ers Packers is really the one I'm watching to see what big change I'm going to make next week. But the Rams, I think I came in cheap enough on where I'll let that ride to try to see as much profit as I can. And then the Ravens, I came in expensive enough where I'm going to do the same. So I think my stock list is kind of set. After next week, it'll be very little It'll be a little stagnant, very little change week to week following next week, I believe.
Yeah. I'm bought into the Dolphins as well, and that's another team that I've been looking at because I spent $850 on three Dolphin stocks, and they're worth $1,200 now, so they've started winning some games. I will be holding on to them for this week because they play the Patriots. However, then they play the Packers, then the Jets, which is winnable, then the Texans, and then week 16 they are up against the 49ers. So there's not a lot of upside to keeping them past this week. So I think next week is probably when I'll offload them. But yeah, that's all the moves I'm making this week. I've moved some money around. I've taken my winnings on my 49ers stock and got out of Dodge, put it into the Bengals. And with that, you're done with your moves. I'm done with my moves. And we're going into PickEms.
Yep. All right. I think I will go ahead and kick us off with Thursday night football this week on PickEms. And if we got Steelers at the Browns, we're going to go ahead and stamp this with a shit show of the week. Not so much because we think both teams are really bad, but because the Steelers just won by only kicking field goals, and then the Browns are the Browns, and they haven't really looked good all year. This, I don't think, will be a very entertaining Thursday night football game, hence it getting this nod this week. I have the Steelers winning this one.
Yep, I also have the Steelers and the same reasoning for shit show of the week. Honestly, this week there weren't like that many bad matchups. I feel like everything was pretty decent, and then this one is like it's not going to be that fun to watch, so we'll give that the nod. Then we get into a NFC North divisional matchup, Vikings at Bears. I'm taking the Vikings in this one, but as we know with divisional matchups, anything can happen. So the Bears very well could win this one.
Yep, and to add credence to that, I have the Bears winning this one. The home team, a team that, they fired their offensive coordinator and they've looked better since. Not saying that they've put everything together since. That's not a fact at all, but they've looked better. So I've got hope for them here, whereas the Vikings, I feel, they got to beat up on the Titans, but there's also a lot of game-altering penalties in that game. I'm not sure if you saw anything about that, but there was we'll say, extraneous factors on that win. So that's why I got the Bears in this one. So we've got the Lions visiting at the Colts. And, I kind of did set a little piece on this earlier, but I got the Lions in this one. The Lions are just the most complete team in football right now and show no signs of being slowed down. I don't care if AR decides to only play the half of his football where he is God incarnate. He still has that little other side of him that I think will show up this week.
Go Lions. Then Patriots heading to Miami, taking on the Dolphins. I think my prediction this year was that the Patriots would split all their divisional matchups. I'm pretty sure that can't happen anymore because they dropped both to the Jets, right? Or did they beat the Jets?
Um, I feel like you said that they did beat them, and I remember you being happy about it. They did
They
beat the
did
Jets.
beat the
Okay.
Jets. It still can happen. With that said, I'm picking the Dolphins in this one. I don't think the Patriots are winning it. I would love it a lot. Drake May looks great, but I still think the Dolphins are better.
Yeah, I think Dolphins at home, um, with how they've looked the past few weeks, I think it's hard to really give the Patriots a nod when the Patriots are just ever so slightly finding ways to lose games. That hasn't been the case, so I've got the Dolphins winning this one. And then we've got the Buccaneers playing the Giants. Tommy DeVito led Giants. I've got the Buccaneers in this one all the way. Tommy DeVito, fun story of last season. But move over, old man. It's time for the future. And the future will be a rookie quarterback next year. Buccaneers are going to go ahead and stomp them in this one, I think.
Cam Ward, you are a New York Giant. I'm taking the Bucks in this one. Yeah, it's not hard to pick against the Giants, and we're getting into another matchup. The Cowboys at the Commanders. It's not hard to pick against the Cowboys. That's what I'm going to be doing here, taking the Commanders at home in that one in that divisional game.
Yep. Commanders definitely, I think, they lost one in the division, but the Cowboys look so atrocious that I don't see it happening again. Then we got the Chiefs visiting the Panthers. I honestly, like, this is the most random, like, upset watch game, but I think it's going to be the Chiefs, the Panthers. We'll see what happens. I don't think the Panthers are going to surmount the insurmountable defense that the Chiefs have, but who knows? You know, it would be a really funny team to upset the Chiefs right after the Bills beat them, but I've still got the Chiefs winning it.
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs as well. I would absolutely love to see the Panthers win here just because it would be so funny. There were a bunch of memes on Twitter going around that the Bryce Young is the Grim Reaper memes, and they were like Patrick Mahomes thinking he got an undefeated season. Meanwhile, Bryce Young, and he's the one that ended. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to end the undefeated season. I got like I said, got the Chiefs in this one, but huge upset watch here. The Panthers are looking better than they were at the start of the season, which is not
Like a
saying
team that
much.
should play in the league.
They are looking like an NFL roster, I guess, partially. But yeah, still Chiefs in this one. They'll bounce back after losing to the Bills, and they'll beat them by 20. Then we got Titans at Texans, taking the Texans pretty easily in this one, getting healthier, getting better, and the Titans are just not that good.
I was thinking Titans originally, and then I was like, nah, the Texans, they just managed to like slap their meat on the table, really showed the Cowgirls. So I'm gonna go with the Texans here. The home field advantage alone, in consideration. I don't think Will Levis and the comedy tour he's on is gonna, get past that. And then we've got the Broncos at Raiders. This is a game that we spoke on the Broncos looking pretty hot. Pause. I've got the Broncos winning this one over the Raiders, and I'm also going to hit it with my lock of the week. So
I am actually matching you word for word with what you just said, except I'm adding no Diddy. Broncos over Raiders, lock of the week here as well. We're throwing the Raiders under the bus. I can't wait for this to be an upset and the Raiders win, but it'll be fun at least if that happens. Then we got the franchise tagged, stamp it up there, game of the week, 49ers at Packers. This is a storied game, a storied matchup. There's some playoff history here. There's some Aaron Rodgers losing in the playoffs every year history here. We'll see if the Packers can rewrite history and win, but I don't think they can. I've got the 49ers taking this one in Lambeau.
yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I got the 49ers winning this one against the Packers. This comes down to defense for me, and I think with how Jordan Love has kind of been Favre, I think that the 49ers defense might enjoy seeing that. And then we got the Cardinals at Seahawks. I've got the Cardinals winning this one. It's kind of that, as you mentioned, Kyler showing off, even though COD's been released. The Seahawks, they did They did upset the Niners last week, but I don't think they keep this up. I think the Cardinals are kind of going to be the one that somehow runs away with the division, despite that not being what anyone predicted to happen earlier this year.
I thought it was a possibility. I didn't like pick them or anything, but I thought they were looking good to start the season. You've convinced me, by the way, just by speaking, to change from the Seahawks to the Cardinals.
Nice.
And so I will take them, even though it's away. And man, I'm not picking many home teams this week. This does not feel right. And then into
Yeah.
the Eagles in LA, taking on the Rams. I've got the Eagles in this one. Again, taking an away team. I think the Eagles look real good. I think the Rams looked pretty good too, but I think I have a little bit more trust in the Eagles and their ability to win games when Saquon is popping off, when the receivers are healthy, when Jalen Hurts is playing as well as he can, and the offensive line is still really good. Not to mention the defense and the exciting whites they got over there.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I think the Rams, they've just kind of been shaky this year. I feel like they have the talent to not be, but they continuously are just kind of like, they're in close games. They're kind of Chiefs-like in that sense, where it's like they're not winning as convincing as I would expect the Rams to win with the talent they have. So the Eagles have been winning pretty convincingly because of their talent. I've got the Eagles in this one. Agreeing with you there. And then for the last game of the pick'ems, we have the Ravens at Chargers. Two teams that, I mean, like last week, the Ravens didn't have a great showing. The Chargers didn't have a great second half showing. I've got the Chargers in this one. It kind of feels wrong to say because the Ravens' weakness is the pass defense, and the Chargers' strength is definitely the play action game. So I think that they might be able to exploit that a little bit, but you can't run off the play action game too well if you are not able to produce rushing plays that are good. So the Ravens could definitely snuff those out quickly. But I'm going to stick with my guns here, and I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Yeah, this is the Harbaugh Bowl. This is the Harbaugh brothers playing again. Last time it was in the Super Bowl, and I believe the Ravens won that one. So that would have been John winning, not Jim. And I think he'll do it again. I got the Ravens over the Chargers in this one. But again, really good game, really close matchup with some teams that have some question marks. I thought the Ravens would be looking really strong, and then they got shut out by a strong, or not shut out, but they got beaten by a strong defense in the Steelers. And the Chargers have an equally, if not more, strong defense. So I can definitely see the reasons for picking the Chargers. I just think the Ravens know they need to pick one up, and this is the one to take. So I'll stick with my pick there.
I have no words of wisdom this week, all right? Don't ask.
All right, Elijah, do you have any words of wisdom for these people the leader live their lives by?
I'm chock full of wisdom. I have no wisdom at the moment, so.
Well, I asked for wisdom, so that works.
All right. The words of wisdom for this week is there's a little subscription, a little sub button. I think it might be a little. I don't know my angles. Post at it, but we'll figure it out. It's somewhere down there. Just look down, read the whole description if you want. There's little links in there. Do what you will. Shout out to Spotify. Check out all of the videos, all the segments we do. Of course, again, not going to be one next week for Thanksgiving, but there will be all the weeks after that. Hit the subscription. Do all that stuff. And with that, deuces.
Deuces.